how did it affect the atmosphere for you guys? Um, I was just
Um,
curious.
can I go first on this one? So in
How did it affect the
so
atmosphere for you guys?
in my theater, I went to the very first showing in Greenville. So half the time, everybody in the theater is trying to be as extra as possible about things to show how big of a fan they are. And so, like, when we were in the theater, people would be yelling out, like, oh my God, no, and oh, the humanity, and all this. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was like a New Orleans funeral. Like, it was insane, and it was so many people like just extra and like sad, and I felt out of place because I'm gonna be honest with you, I felt no emotion in that movie except for happiness. Like, Earth's mightiest heroes took the mightiest L's, like, and I was happy. That's exactly what I wanted to happen the whole movie. And then at the end, kill scene, maybe it's because SEL's got me binge watching Game of Thrones over the past year, but I didn't feel shit. Like, I was just like, all right, they disappeared, they turned to ash, like, whatever. Like, it didn't even really look like they
Whatever.
yeah, honestly, it didn't look like they died. It kind of looked like when, like, they were going between dimensions in that bad Super Mario live action movie. Like, that's what it looked like. I was like, they're not dead, they're just off somewhere, like, whatever. Like, even when Stark got stabbed, I was like, didn't go through the heart, he's fine, it's cool. Like, I didn't, like, the whole time I've just become like,
Gamora's bleeding green. She's fine.
I was just like, up, like, I feel nothing. Like, this is great though. Like, I love that, like, every single Avenger, like Thanos was like, yo, come run this fade, and they got handled, like, every single one of them. And I absolutely love that. But, like, the theater, most of the people in there, I feel like they were just being extra. I'm like, no one likes Gamora that much. Like, come on, like, don't. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it, but I feel like it was a lot. It was a lot of emotion, but part of me wonders how much it was just people being extra in my theater. That's Greenville.
I'd like to touch on the part where you said like there was only one emotion he felt, which was joy or happiness or whatever. Like, I felt the exact same way. I only felt elation. I was very impressed during. Like, I just felt like it was just a really great movie. A lot of my friends, like a lot of like particularly like a lot of my friends cried at the end of this movie, and I didn't feel that. Maybe it's because I know, like, I know the comic. But now I just also, if I didn't, if they were to just die and be gone, period, I also like stories like that just have stakes, like, you know what I mean. And like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry because some superheroes die. To be honest, there's real shit going on in the world, so I got real shit to cry about. But I'm not dissing anybody who cried at the movie. That's your thing. But yeah, like, I didn't feel anything except, yo, I was just really fucking impressed that this movie came together, like, on some real shit. Like, it was just like just a cohesive. It was just a great movie. I felt nothing but elation. It was just really, I'm just enthused to see the next one a lot. But yeah, that was just me. I felt one emotion. It was just joy, like, just like Keegan.
Emotion. Yeah, I was for me, I was really I was just overwhelmed. I think that's the real question for me. Like, it's weird. The third time around was actually the smoothest transition or viewing for me. It actually went the fastest for me. Like, the first time watching it, it might have something to do with the fact of the midnight showings. I've noticed when I see the midnight showing or the 3 a.m. showing, the movies feel a little bit longer for me. But like, that first time felt like extensionally long. Like, it was just a lot of stuff to absorb and a lot of things, and they were jumping from planet to planet and universe to universe. So I just felt tired. I felt really tired after the first viewing. And then the second viewing still felt a little long, but I was also waiting for my friend to show up so I could get him into the theater. So, but the third time around actually went the smoothest and I enjoyed it the most. And it was fairly good. But yeah, the first time around, I just felt exasperated and had to process like everything that was going on in regards to uh the people dying. The only one that really I thought was interesting to me, even though I caught on to it fairly early, was with Gamora. I just liked it because I was like, God damn, they're really actually humanizing Thanos, and I was like, and it was at that moment I was like, wait, whose movie? Like, I was like, whose fucking movie is this now? It was really centered more or less around Thanos, and that one scene, like, it's still fresh in my head from my viewing yesterday. But when she's falling and they zoom in on Thanos, they're giving him like the hero arc, kind of like he really had this like Bruce Willis type look to him, crying and shit. It was like, who's move? Like, wait a second, are we supposed to be like, for me, anyways, are we supposed to be really like getting behind Thanos at this point? Because I'm kind of like Team Thanos right now.
Okay, I'm glad I wasn't the only one. I was feeling like a monster watching that movie.
No, I think we were rooting for Thanos. I think we would have been, in a weird way, a strange disappointment in the movie had Thanos not completed his task. I think I would have left the movie feeling incomplete.
Yeah,
I agree. Shifted into protagonist mode for a bit. I was like, yo, like when he started crying at the Gamora scene, I was like, yo, why do I feel for Thanos right now? He's got to. I started crying at the Gamora scene.
I want to say something real quick. I think Keaton might have mentioned it. I went to the first showing in New York City. I live in New York City. I went to the first showing on Thursday at 7 p.m. And it makes me want to go to the first showing of any like major movie that I want to see, because those people who show up, every joke was getting laughs. Every was getting cheers. You know what I mean? And I went to it, and then my friends of mine went to like other showings. They were like, you know, I realized that they didn't have the same experience that I did, just because of how much, you know, how enthused people are for that first fucking showing. I want to, like, you know what I mean? It just made me realize, I got to get that first ticket every time.
Oh, absolutely. Same deal with me. The same deal with me. Like, nobody laughed at the second showing, and my second showing was actually, was actually opening night, Friday night, 8 o'clock, and nobody. But again, this is an Asian, or I should say, this is a Japanese crowd. So it was just the fact that we went to the it's called Roppongi. We went to the foreigner area of Japan, and we saw that midnight showing. So half the crowd was like foreigners. So I heard people crying. Like, I was really legitimately concerned for Callie, because I knew she was sitting behind me and she's expecting. So I could hear like sniffling and people like bawling in the background, and I was like, holy shit. So yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, that first showing is always crazy, man. Like, people started clapping when the Collector got on screen. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, y'all are excited for him? Like, what? What is happening?
People, even with the Wakanda music, dun, 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 like, I heard people in the background whispering,
oh yeah, that definitely happened.
T'Challa.
It's like a Lion King.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
No, that's really interesting, because I think that more people clapped throughout the movie than at the very end. Nobody in all two showings I went to clapped at the end. They just were complete silent, and like waited all the way until the very end credit, and then just walked out, like looking like zombies, like straight up. But nah, I think that I feel the same that way. Like, this was Thanos' movie. And I know that we got Ace and got my man Blackwing in here. I want to give you time to shout y'all out. What's going on, you guys?
Yo, what's going on? Good.
I'm good, man. We got Ace and got my man Blackwing in here. Yeah, appreciate y'all for joining in, man. What was you guys' impression of Infinity War, and how did it make you feel coming out of it before we move on to the next thing?
I'll go first. When I first, you know, the build up to Infinity War, I thought, you know, everybody was overhyping the movie. Because for me, I'm thinking it's a Disney movie first and foremost. So you can't expect certain things from a Disney movie. And then I watched the first 5 minutes of this movie and I saw Loki die. I said, oh, snap. I said, yo.
Those resurrections.
I said, yo, this is...
There will be no resurrection.
So at the end of the movie, I was just silent. I'm like, I didn't even remember there was an end credit. I'm not even waiting for the end credit. I'm like, yo, what kind of Disney movie, like, who allowed this to happen? So I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was great. 10 out of 10 for me. I thought it was the perfect way to do Avengers Infinity
Hey,
War.
on a side note, just the whole thing about Disney, I noticed it the second time around when Thanos is going up against Doctor Strange. I like how Doctor Strange, when Thanos did some Kamehameha and shit, Doctor Strange turned that shit into the classic blue Disney birds flying back at Thanos, and I thought that was funny as shit.
What about I was thinking about when wasn't there a shout out to bats during that movie? Then something like something got turned to bats, right?
Yeah.
In my mind, I just want it to be a shout out to The Dark Knight, which would be the only other superhero movie that would rival this for me. But I know I'm just making that shit up in my mind, but whatever.
Yeah.
I thought I saw bats too, man.
It was definitely bats.
It was two different scenes. There was one where Thanos sent like the things that look like bats after Tony. And then there's the other Disney one that Akasan's talking about in the duel between Doctor Strange and Thanos. Yeah.
What was up with Thanos' obsession with bubbles though? Like he didn't just make it. He kept turning into bubbles, bro. Like I was like, you really like bubbles, don't you, Thanos?
You really like bubbles as a child, Thanos, baby Thanos.
Yeah.
Thank you for the $5, KY
Like,
oh my god,
dude was on some like ultimate troll stuff that whole movie, man. Like he was messing with people on an emotional level. I loved Thanos, man, in that movie. Like by the end, I was like, yo, I'm digging this dude. Like, cause I've been waiting for all these heroes to take L's. Like every single movie, it's like at the very end, it's a Disney movie and everything's good. Oh yeah, we killed off one side character that no one cares about. But look, it's a baby Groot. Everything's great, right? Like, and like they've done that for literally 20 movies straight. Right. And finally, they ended one and they were like, yo, we're going Empire Strikes Back with it. You're going to be sad for a little bit. You'll be sad. It'll be like a year, but you'll be sad a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was so happy because like Thanos legitimately went through Earth's mightiest heroes and was like, there's nothing mighty about you. From the very beginning, the first person he beat was the Hulk. That's when you knew.
Yeah.
That is when you knew it was gonna be real. When that wizard dude was like, nah. Let my man have his fun.
Yeah.
And Thanos was like, oh, we doing this? We do. My man was ducking and weaving like Dudley in Street Fighter. I was like,
like third viewing, I realized that after Thanos did one punch and that was it. Hulk was done. He punched him in the fucking neck.
Yeah.
Hulk never got another swing in after that.
It was an ultra stun. It was an ultra stun. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thanos knew how to fight.
I wouldn't come back after that shit too. That fucking the champion of Sakaar and shit for 2 years. Dude got punched in the neck and then he got slammed down, which I thought was also interesting. He got slammed down the same way that Hulk slammed down Loki and Thor and shit.
Like he put my man in like the Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant body slam. Like, dude, I caught so many WWE references in that whole movie. Like, first that body slam, and then like when Thor was holding the star open, he was hitting the Shawn Michaels with the leg out. Like, I was noticing.
Oh shit! I didn't even catch that.
I was noticing so much stuff. I was like, man, they're going all out for this.
Holy shit! I didn't catch that until right now. That's
he had the leg stuck out and everything. I'm like, I see Shawn Michaels.
Yo, and to be real, that was without the use of any of the stones, right? Because I don't think he was really using the power stone at that. I mean, he wasn't like using it in that fight. Yeah, that was just bare mono. He's fucked up. Like he's hit him with the hands, baby. Like
Hold on, I want to answer this question really quick because a few people have been asking about this, but since I just got $10 for it, since Groot was one of the characters killed off at the end, does that mean that the handle to Thor's hammer is gone since it was part of Groot? That is not true because that is no longer an extension of Groot's body. He chopped it off, so that's it. I just wanted to answer that real quick because a few people were asking about that, but nah, it's no longer part of Groot anymore. Yeah,
right.
That's a really good question. I was actually thinking about that myself because technically, you know, if he did die and there was the one piece left, could he regenerate himself? But nah, that makes the most sense. Blackwing,
technically he could though. Yeah, that's true. He could actually regenerate as well.
What's going on, bro? What did you think about the movie? What was your expectations and how did you feel coming out of it?
That's true. All right. First of all, thanks for having me, Sam. I didn't think I was
What's going on, bro? What did you think about the movie? What was your expectations and how did you feel coming out of it?
This movie put me in emotional baggage. Like as soon as I walked out, I saw this movie at 7:30 a.m. Friday morning. Thank you, Mom, for able to find me a ticket. Thank you, Mom. Of course, reactions in the theater weren't drastic as most of them are because 7:30 a.m. in the morning. Who wants to be like reacting so crazy? I mean, I'll probably the only. I didn't yell or anything, but I was like showing emotions on like every single scene. And
I'm not the only one hearing jazz music.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody with the jazz hands.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, when this dude speaks and music plays, I'm like,
comes with his own soundtrack.
Yo, I wish all of us had a theme song when we talk.
Ignore the sounds in the background.
Nah, it's cool, bro. You got jazz. Can mine be trap
music?
Like
fucking Luke Cage up in here, dude.
I want mine shit to be some trap music that starts playing. Talking.
Wow. Anyway, shoot, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so yeah, like as soon as the first 5 minutes of the movie just hit, immediately just set the tone of the movie. I'm like, wow, that's just I can't believe this.
Yeah.
And like, I knew there were L's gonna be taken in this movie, but I didn't know like how many and who. And some deaths were unexpected to me. The action was great. Like this movie felt like an actual comic book event, like just going on. That's how much I just enjoyed this movie. And the same thing which is going through. I'm like, where do we go from here? That's the same thing I felt with The Last Jedi. Like, where do we go? I mean, like, what happens next? So that's how awesome this movie was, and that's all I gotta say.
Hey, Jonathan, don't forget to tip your waiter, though. You know, I know you have to. Thanks for taking the time to join the stream from the Jazz Cafe, La La Land here.
Yo, we need the story real quick, bro. Do you have a roommate who he needs to play his sax now?
That's my brother, so just
okay.
It could be worse. It could be worse, though. It actually sounds pretty damn good. I kind of like it. It's like jazz chill hour now. Infinity Ward at this point.
Man, it's just like Bill Clinton next door playing saxophone. It's like that's how we do it here. I came prepared. Who'd you bring?
Can he just play some of the Avengers theme song instead?
I don't know if he can. I don't know.
Lisa Simpson.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, but
right, Sam. Yeah, next.
What was the question, Sam?
No, man, nah. I've lost it. I've lost it.
And do we have you have an agenda of things like that you have written down, or are we just going?
Yeah. What's the next question?
I actually did wanted to go into what was your favorite eye-opening moment. Like we brought up different moments where the crowd like legit clapped. The most notable definitely is when Cap showed up. When the real extremist armor started having like magical ramifications with Tony going up against Thanos. When Thor came back, I mean, but to me, honestly, like Thor in this movie was the best Thor I've ever seen in all these films.
That armor didn't make no sense.
Like, I thought that the way that they handled Thor as a character and just how they use him as a real god for once, rivaled even Ragnarok because, like, with this one, like, there was like real depth to his character. When he was talking with the Guardians of the Galaxy, yes, it was some funny moments, but there was a real seriousness about the weight behind who he is. And I was just curious, what was one of your like standout moments or standout characters that you want to kind of bring up?
Can I just say something on that Thor moment? Because that Thor moment really is what ties together the last 10 years of movies, right? Because think about where Thor was when we meet him at the very first movie and where he is now. Like, of all the characters, he kind of ties together the entire progression of a character from being this punk, basically, to selfless and intelligent in the way he's acting and really reaching his full power as we know him in the comics.
Yeah.
Totally. No, I agree with that. Like, you literally see this full reigniting a dying star and shit. Like, you literally see him like in space grabbing shit. And I'm like, I don't remember him being this goddamn strong, but he
Right.
finally is. Yeah.
And yet, and he did start out like as like just a young punk. Like I remember that first movie, like he was just swinging the hammer and smiling like he was in like a damn Trident commercial. And then like all of a sudden now it's like, yo, he is the god of thunder. Like he represented in this movie, like he was the big gun. Like
I agree.
My favorite hero in this movie was Thor, and that actually surprised me. I was expecting it to be Cap or maybe Iron Man or Spidey, but it was actually Thor by far was my favorite hero. He was the beast.
Though it is interesting because I read a report a few weeks ago about how why was Thor or why is Thor so underpowered in the MCU, and I mean they basically brought it up. They're like, look, like if you brought in comics Thor, Avengers 1, he would have crushed Loki like in a second and taken down the entire Chitauri army all by himself. So there's no plot, there's no story after that. But since they finally had someone bigger and badder, Thanos, that they could finally level up, give Thor that ultra instinct and shit, and give him a proper challenge. And with Hulk, it actually gave Hulk an interesting story as well. For me, it was Thor and Doctor Strange. Actually, I felt like Thor, Doctor Strange, it was their best movies this entire. Like I actually don't really. I'm a bit bored with the Doctor Strange movie. I don't know what it is, but I think I just didn't really. I'm not really into Doctor Strange or Homecoming.
I am now
as much as everybody else is. I think just generally because I kind of know where it needs to go, where the story needs to go. So I'm not that big on it. So that being said, for me, I felt like Doctor Strange really stood out in Ragnarok, but he that was his movie for a good amount of that time in Infinity War, and same thing with Thor. We actually saw a good amount of acting chops. If you look closely, you actually see Thor crying, like tearing up when talking about his family. Like all his family and friends are dead, and he has nothing really else to live for. So
that was one of my favorite conversations. Actually, the movie. It was like that was one of like that was one of the moments that was emotional for me when you were realizing Thor literally lost everybody, and maybe I think Sif might be out there, right? Sif might be alive, and
I think she's it. Yeah.
And Valkyrie, and I guess some of the and Valkyrie and maybe some of the Valkyrie, but like literally, like this dude literally lost everybody. Loki was, and then obviously all the Asgardians that just got fucking bum rushed.
Like, what's her name? She was dead on the ship. Didn't they show her?
No,
Sif was.
I don't know. Sif.
Valkyrie.
Yeah, Valkyrie.
She was dead. Oh, shit. She was on the ship though, right?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so I can explain that one because the first time around I didn't catch it, but Thanos was Thanos is all about executing half the people, and we thought, okay, all the Asgardians are on that ship, but Thor briefly mentions the fact that when he's talking to Gamora, he's like, your father killed half my people. And I'm like, oh shit, wait a second. So my explanation for that, my explanation for that one is the fact that how we see flashback young Gamora and young Thanos talking, and they're separating the people. My thought process is the fact that Infinity War starts after they separate half the people, and they executed the other half in Infinity War starts right there, because Ebony Maw is already giving his speech about even in death you will become children of Thanos, like that. So he basically executed that half, but the other half got somewhere else already.
I was about to say, because he blew up the whole ship after that.
Right. I don't know, what happened, but half of the Asgardians are somewhere. I just don't know where they are.
I'm thinking we're probably gonna get the Xandar story, and then maybe that story, and maybe in like a comic book prequel shit like that.
Perhaps. I read the prelude to Infinity War, and they're bringing it out more gradually. So I think by the end of this year we'll get more story on what happened with Xandar and what happened with the Asgardians. But the first two comics were like just kind of basically show Cap running around with Black Widow and Falcon, and Vision and Scarlet Witch having freaky sex and shit.
For real.
Oh man.
So do you think that when Thanos snapped his finger, another half of Asgardians got killed? Because that's a little unfair. It's a little unfair. That's all I'm saying.
Like, wait a minute. That's
wow. Wow, that's a good question.
Probably.
You know, we also have to consider
Glenn Close comes out like, I made it. Ah, fuck.
We also have to consider the fact that not every race gets cut in half, because if you ever watch The Leftovers, I don't know if you guys ever watched that, which is similar like to this. Like, I'm not gonna give spoilers to it, but maybe if half the people in the universe die, there might be some civilizations that nobody gets killed, and then another civilization that everybody dies, right? Or is it really that? Who knows? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
I honestly thought about that, because I laughed to myself like that. That end credit scene when Samuel Jackson pulls out a beeper and
it's an interstellar beeper.
I was about to laugh. I'm like, yo, what if she died with the snap? Like nobody got that beat. Like no one's on the other end. Like I laughed. That was one of the only things I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, sorry, dog.
Yeah.
Here's the only problem I'm gonna have. The biggest problem I have with the future of the next two movies is, like, I know each movie, like, people are gonna be trying to tune in hoping that they'll get some sort of continuation from Infinity War, but nah, man, because they're all taking place before Infinity War. Even they advertise smart by Disney, smart by Marvel, but they even put out a little trailer a few hours ago saying where were Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I thought that was kind of interesting. The new trailer comes out tomorrow. But the only problem I'm gonna have, and it's great fucking marketing by Marvel, but it's really going to be annoying for me. It's the fact that I'm going to be sitting through that entire movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, waiting for something, and we probably will only get a in-credit scene of Michael Douglas fading into dust, basically.
That's a fact. I believe the same thing.
It's the problem with a movie like this is that it casts a long shadow over everything else, and now everything else has to deal with it until the next movie hits.
Yeah, right.
Even because the Netflix shows even talk about the incident, which was the big New York attack. Are they gonna, like, how do they deal with this shows? They just ignore it or not?
I honestly hope they do the dust to dust situation, because honestly speaking, I feel like some of those Netflix shows should not have been created. It's like, I didn't even start Jessica Jones season 2. I just don't feel like it. Like,
I still haven't watched. Yeah, I don't care. I haven't started it either.
It's just I know Feige and homie got into a battle, but yo, it's been 10 years, man. You need to patch that shit up and give us more of a reason to watch those shows, because they're not connected at all.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the rest of them too. But so this is one thing I guess I'll bring up, and a lot of people think it as negatives. The character motivations that happen in this movie. There's a lot of people that make stupid emotional decisions, and I'll list off a few of them.
Some thoughts here.
I'm just gonna list off a few of them, and then I'll let you guys.
We all about to trash Star-Lord.
Y'all can comment on them.
I want to talk about that
on the way that you want to. Okay, I'm just gonna bring up a few different ones. One of the ones was, all right, Loki's death. Loki, I don't know what Loki thought he was gonna do. He'd already failed. Thanos already won. He killed most of the Asgardians, and he came up to this man with the knife. That's one. the fact that I mean I'm not gonna make my comments on it, but the fact that Bruce couldn't get Hulk out because Hulk was ultimately scared. He was not even apparent even throughout the whole entire movie. The fact that Doctor Strange, yes, he saw millions of different possibilities and one of them worked, but he failed to actually tell Tony why. I have a comment on that one. I think I know exactly why. But he didn't tell Tony, well, I'm gonna poof away and this is the end game. You know what I'm saying? He didn't say anything. Star-Lord, yeah, it's kind of blatantly obvious what Star-Lord did. Out of emotion, he goes and attacks Thanos when they had him down and about to take the gauntlet out. And then I mean that's pretty much all the different character motivations that a lot of people have a lot of indiscrepancies about and problems about. But I'm just curious which one of those you guys want to talk about, which one bothered you the most. I mean, aside from like characters not getting a lot of screen time, like a lot of people were like, I want Black Panther to have more screen time, I want Cat to have more screen time. This was not
That's always
this
gonna
wasn't
happen
their
with a movie
movie.
like
This was
this.
Thanos' movie. This was his reckoning. You know
I
what I'm
got
saying?
two I want to talk about big time.
So go for it, whichever one you want to go to.
I'm like roaring. I'm like, let's do this. Let's do this.
I can be quick about mine. I'll be really.
All right.
All right.
Go ahead.
I'll be really quick about mine
I'll step
because
down.
there's only one that stood out for me as kind of weird is Loki. That's it. Everybody else, it's just plot derivative. It needed the plot to happen this way. It's like it's the same thing of like saying, why didn't Doctor Strange? Why didn't anybody just try to cut off Thanos's arm?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that would have get that. Like we were making a joke about that. Like if that Fox deal went a little earlier, they could have got a Wolverine in there, slice off the arm, and that's it.
No, that's a good reason. There's a good reason. If he slices off, he probably saw the possibility of him slicing off that arm, and that possibility leads to Thanos winning.
What?
If he slices
I don't know.
off, he probably so Doctor Strange saw all the different possibilities, right? So he's looking at all the possibilities, and there's only one way to win. One of the possibilities he probably looked at was slicing off Thanos' arm for the Infinity Gauntlet.
Right.
And in that possibility, Thanos still wins somehow.
But that's the one I was going to talk about, like on what Sam was saying about why didn't he just tell Tony? Because maybe one of the possibilities was him telling Tony, and shit went awry.
Right. The problem
That's
is
right.
The problem is
That's not the only one I want to talk about was Doctor Strange. Because I'm a big fan of mathematics. That's like an if and only if statement. Like you know what I mean?
That's right.
Okay, so for me, the only problem I had was with Loki because I was like, are you really about to pull this shit? Even when he came out like out the corner from the bathroom or something, I'm like, is that really Loki? Or like, is this another version of Loki? Is this a shapeshifter Loki? Like, because one, he didn't turn blue. And so it got me thinking, especially with my friend who was like crying up a storm after that movie. Like, does that mean Ragnarok version of Loki that when he Dark World Loki, he just did the blue effect to try to sell it more, or so when Loki really dies, like that shit had me all thinking was like, because it just seems so out of character or so weird for Loki to even try to do that. And so my thought is that the actual Loki escaped on some fucking pod or some shit like that and just used some crazy magic to like, I don't know. So that's the only one that stands out for me as kind of really out of character. Like, come on now, you ain't about to get Thanos.
I think Loki's dead because I don't think they can afford to do because they're gonna bring everybody back, and if they bring some of the people who got killed before the snapback, it's just like, wow, can anybody really die in these fucking films?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Agree.
I just think they have to have some hard kills, like you know what I mean.
Especially a character where they literally say resurrection, no resurrection.
No
this
resurrections for you this time.
Oh yeah,
he didn't turn blue.
That let people know right there.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right there, man. Like,
so the two I want to talk about is Chris Pratt. Well, is Star-Lord. Sorry, is Star-Lord. So I think that Star-Lord, because he gets all emotional in that moment and doesn't help pull off the gauntlet. I think the problem in that moment, and this is one of my few nitpicks of the movie, is that Chris Pratt did not pull off the acting in that moment. I don't think he looked as emotional as he needed to look in that moment to look like he just like totally lost control. he still looked like he was aware of what was going on in his surroundings, and because of that, it didn't quite pull off that moment in the same way it could have if he like truly like felt like he was almost like raging out, like emotionally losing control.
My problem with that scene, it wasn't with the acting, it was with the writing. So what they wanted, what they needed in that moment, I guess they felt was that they needed a moment of suspense where they're getting the glove off and then they don't. I feel like then they didn't need to choose that way to happen. Maybe they could have I don't know, they could have wrote it a different way where we don't fucking hate Star-Lord now for making like, what are you doing, dumbass? Get the glove off and then beat him up for your girlfriend. You know what I mean? So I felt like they could have just wrote that better. You know,
That's fair.
I don't.
You could have had Doctor Strange take off the arm, and you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, it's over." Then Thanos somehow like grabs the gauntlet, reattaches, and beats them all down.
And that's what makes me just think that like Strange knew all this had to happen this exact specific way, because like all these guys hanging around him and none of them were like, "Yo, Star-Lord, chill." Like not a single one of them.
Right.
And so, yeah, that makes me think that like Strange, like even when he gave him the rock, like every single plan, every single part was what he saw in one of those 14 million views. And he's like, all right, we got to run it. This is the only way.
And they go over the top to establish that Strange has no care for Tony, like no care. And then you see him saving him, so you know he is just playing out the script as he saw it.
And the way he talks, when like I really realized the third time around was like when the last thing he says to Tony, he's like, Tony. He doesn't say like Tony. He's just like Tony, like not lecturing, like kind of the way a teacher or a parent kind of talks to you, like
kind of exactly what my father talks to me. Yeah,
exactly. I just imagine Doctor Strange sounds like that all the time, even when I'm reading the comics. Honestly,
yeah, no, he did it really well. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
For me, I could say probably the nitpicking moment was Hulk not having enough action that he was supposed to be. Like, Thanos sent Hulk running with his tail tied behind his legs. That pretty much, Hulk was just gone for the rest of the movie. And I guess what really came to my mind is, this just popped into my brain with Banner being in the Hulkbuster suit. I just picture with Aldrich Killian saying to Tony like, "What, you're stuck cooking a little turtle shell?" I'm like, oh my gosh, like Hulk is not coming back after this one no more. I'm like, bruh, this is like, because you got the Hulk as the strongest character there is in the Marvel Universe, turn tail and run
not
and
anymore.
never to come back. I'm like, Hulk, you're better than this. Get out of there. I'm like, what happened to you? So that's one thing that I could say that bugged me. What I would say, kind of with the Doctor Strange thing, like how we said there was multiple scenarios on how they lose, but there's one that we actually win, and we never really got to see how they would win that. And so yeah, that kind of bugged me just a little bit.
But I feel that we're seeing it now. And that's the thing, like anybody that sees a lot of time travel movies, like you can't tell the future, because if you tell them what happens in the future, then they're going to try to play it out and you're going to end up changing the future. That's why Doctor Strange didn't say anything to Tony, because Tony, especially being Tony, would try to do the exact opposite of what he was told to do. And it just doesn't work that way. That's one of those like time travel 101 things.
He'd probably try and figure out a way to do it with less cost or something.
Exactly.
I put an arc reactor in it.
I thought Hawk was amazing. I really liked Hawk because ultimately, like, Hawk is this manifestation of like Banner getting beat as a kid, right, by his dad. And so he's just a big like 7-year-old bully, basically, is what the Hawk is. And what happens to a 7-year-old bully when he gets beat down is exactly how the Hawk was acting in that movie. So I just felt like it added even more than Thor Ragnarok. It added another layer of character to Hawk. So I don't know about people. There's a lot of people who are hating on the fact that Hawk acted that way, though.
I was one of those people. I didn't. Now I feel a little bit better about it that you just told me that, because I had no clue about this child abuse situation with the Hawk. I don't think most of the people watching it do.
I mean, it depends on which version you're going with. Like the Ang Lee story, yeah, they had that kind of feeling in there. So.
Oh yes, right. Okay. Yeah.
The only problem I had with the Hulk situation was I would have thought Hulk was scared of Thanos, fine, because Thanos was the one that fucked him up, basically. But every time Bruce was telling him, come out, Thanos was nowhere to be seen. So I'm like, Hulk, you can deal with these guys. When Thanos comes, okay, you can be scared. That's fine. But he's nowhere to be seen right now. So what are you scared of? I don't understand.
I just
Like,
think,
why?
like, as a performance anxiety, like, you got to realize that Hulk has never been handled ever. Like, Hulk has never had a big difficulty with most to anybody, and then for the last 2 years, he's been his hands have been on the steering wheel. He's been in control. He's been the champion of Scar, and he even beat the shit out of Thor. Granted, with a little bit of a cheat code, but like, that dude got shocked, dude. That he got fucking shook. That's it.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. This was Rocky post Clubber Lang. Like Mr. T like beat Rocky down, and Rocky was like, yo, I might be done. I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. Like that's what happened, because because like when he wasn't popping back out, I'm like, all right, there's gonna be a moment, because they put Bruce Banner in that Hulkbuster suit only for him to bust out of it. And it's
That's
gonna
what
be
I was hoping for too. Yeah,
I was like, oh man, it's coming. It's about to happen. And it never happened.
But it doesn't happen.
It never happened. And I'm like, yo, Hulk ain't coming back out. Like Debo snatched his chain. Like, nah. Like, not like, man. Ooh.
You know,
it was so good. I fell in love with the movie first 5 minutes when Thanos was like, come on, let's dance. Let's
Here's the thing. Here's the thing I wanted to ask you guys, and this is kind of like, so for example.
Wait, before you go, are we
oh
moving
yeah,
on?
go ahead. Let me know when it's.
I just want to say this regarding the Hulk before we move on to whatever you're going to talk about. The one solace with that is that the next movie Hulk is going to be a beast, because they totally nerfed him in this one. So I feel like Hulk is going to have some moments that are going to be.
I don't know.
I think he's gonna blame himself. I think it's not even just gonna be the fact of like him, like, man, all right, now I get to strut myself. Like, there's ramifications of the fact that he didn't do anything. Like, he was not even apparent in it. And I think that in the next one, like, it's like, man, there's weight behind that, because he even said, like, him and Banner were like, there's some things that we're gonna have to really work out. And all throughout this entire saga, they've been trying to counterbalance each other. Like, I don't want to be you. Like, I don't need you. I need to be myself. I don't want puny Banner. I want to be myself. And so it's like, now it's going to be this ultimate fusion between the two, because there is no other choice anymore. Like, the game has already been lost. Now what are you going to do to step up? And I think that that's going to be weight later on. But no, that's a good point, Tony. Appreciate it. What were you going to say, Akasan?
All right, so this one goes into something that, as a good half of us are reactors as well as YouTubers and such, and so we get multiple requests, or at least I do, and people get so mad that the fact that I don't react to the TV trailers and the TV spots, and I don't want. But I was watching Infinity War. The trailer, I watched those two trailers almost every day until that movie came out, and I analyzed the music, talked with my students about it. And one of the biggest problems that I actually had is the fact that watching the movie, I'm subconsciously piecing together the movie when I see certain scenes come up. And my first question for you guys is, how do you feel? What do you guys feel about Marvel purposely putting in scenes from the movie that don't ever make it into the movie? They first started doing it around the Age of Ultron, but then they really blatantly have started to do it around Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, even the director came out and said, hey, I just want to let everybody know there's no scene with Spider-Man and Iron Man swinging past the camera like that. And so with Infinity War, the big one for me, which kind of annoyed me, but at the same time, the Wakanda scene where everybody is running in slow motion. When Thanos showed up, I thought that's when we were about to get the Hulk. Hulk was going to get his shit together, and everywhere I was like, no, wait, we're still going to get that scene, right? We didn't get that scene for shit. That was done only for the trailer.
I think you can't have it both ways. So you can either, because like I said, a lot of people are judging the movie on external factors, things outside of the movie. And one way to try and mitigate all those external factors is to slip in stuff like that into the trailer. So you can either judge the movie with those kind of external factors, or you can have them put everything directly in the trailer. But it just seems like in this day and age with like social media and people watching the trailers over and over again and people picking apart the trailers, that if a director wants people to truly experience a movie like the way they want them to experience it for the first time, they have to pull that kind of stuff off. I've often said what they should do is just show the first like 5 minutes of the movie as the trailer and call it good.
No, this one.
They couldn't have done it with this one.
They could have if they had just shown that first bit, Loki dies, everything. Would you have been excited about this movie? Would you have been excited about this movie? I would have been excited about this movie.
Man, you couldn't bring your kids to see that movie after that, man.
Well, that's true. All right. It may have been a little rated R. It may have been a little rated.
Yeah. So here's the question, though. Here's the bigger question I wanted to know is like, do you think that there's a immoral issue with them false advertising? So for example, there are people legitimately that would go to see this movie just for the Hulk.
Yeah,
and yes, they get the Hulk in the first 2 minutes or so, but a good amount of them would be holding out for that final scene because they think he's going to come back. So do you feel like there's like do you feel like there's an immoral issue with them false advertising? And on top of that, do you think the TV spots, because I didn't even watch the fucking TV spots, but so many people were like, yo, Akasan, you got to react to the chant. Dude, you got to watch. Where's your reaction to the chant thing? And even by the thumbnail alone, I could piece together, okay, so right here is where T'Challa's going to start chanting the chant. Oh, wait, this thing where Scarlet Witch is watching these fucking destructal discs come down. She's probably gonna jump down and do whatever that thumbnail was advertising. So do you feel like they're just gonna, or is that's just a sacrifice of the age we live in today?
No, I think that this is actually a, how do I put this? It's a setup. What it is a setup to make the audience perceive that something is one thing and it's something else. Like, I'll give the biggest example is Thor Ragnarok. The first trailer you see Thor Ragnarok, he comes down with the hammer. You see both his eyes illuminating. We never perceived that he was going to lose his eye because of that advertisement, which came out on top for their betterment. But then you brought up, like you said, with Spider-Man, one of the highlight moments of the first trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming was seeing Tony Stark and Spider-Man just flying through together. And we never got that. And I think that what it does is sets up this false expectation of something that could be very meaty. I think even more so than the Hulk, people had an expectation that Black Panther was going to be in this movie a lot more, especially coming off the high of Black Panther. Like, a lot of people were like, they saw that scene with Black Panther and Okoye talking about, like, this isn't just about Wakanda, this is about the world. That wasn't in the movie. Now, it could have been a deleted scene. It could have been like something that they're going to add in for the DVD commentary later on, because they did say that there is like 30 extra minutes, but no matter what, that expectation was already put in our heads. And it's like, even Shuri, like, you're like, all right, people were like, man, Shuri is so smarter than everybody else. She had one scene to prove that, yes, and it was a very impactful scene, but she didn't do anything besides that. And I think that false perception can be very dangerous moving on, because the more people love this, the more expectations are being built up, the more you put yourself in detriment for your product, because people are saying, okay, I came here for this and that's not what I got, versus like you trying to be tricky with it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think we have to take into account that, you know, especially for the earlier trailers, they're getting these trailer companies are getting handed footage that and the final cut of the movie isn't out. So edits come later in where maybe like the footage that, you know, they thought would make the movie that were in those trailers, they get cut out. So I don't think it's always intentional. Like, they're not trying to perfect. That's
what happened with Rogue One.
Yeah, like these, like, you know, they get sent to test audiences, and then all types of shit happens, and then, you know, shit gets pulled from the movie for time sometimes, and so I don't think it's always intentional.
That's a good point. Also, what I was gonna also just say to piggyback off of that is just the fact that sometimes the trailer is so fucking good it changes the entire movie. Suicide Squad. True. So, you know.
But also imagine fast forward 5 years where every single trailer is basically doing this, it kind of, you'll just start to be like, okay, I don't know what's actually going to be in movies anymore. And the directors are now kind of getting what I think they want out of doing this sort of thing, right? You just start to discount every single trailer.
But I just really wish I know they need a selling point, but like like Sam was saying earlier, it's a very dangerous game that they're playing because for like one of the biggest scenes is that slow motion running scene where I thought everybody was about to assemble, and toward the end of the movie I'm still waiting for that scene to happen, and I'm like, oh fuck. And it kind of sucks because that was one of the strongest scenes for me, on top of baby Gamora, child Gamora taking Thanos' hand. I'm glad that was in the movie, but my other big scene was not in that movie, and it just kind of sometimes it will take it away. I think it takes away from the thing. So I know Thor's Stormbreaker wasn't in there when he puts his, but you could obviously see Stormbreaker was edited out from the trailer.
You know the big.
Thor just puts his fist up in the air like, what?
Once I heard Stormbreaker, immediately I was thinking, oh, Beta Ray Bill. I was like, is he showing up? I'm like, nah.
Right.
But like, I don't know.
For me, I could say that I ignored as soon as I saw the second trailer, I ignored every single TV spot. I ignored every single interview. I didn't want to see nothing. I just wanted to just go in and see this movie for what it is. And kind of like what you said with the with the Conda scene with Hulk in it, I was like, I kind of was expecting that, but then again, I wasn't because I didn't know, I didn't have any expectations on what happens when and what scene's gonna be in the from the trailer is gonna be in the movie. I wasn't like nitpicking what scenes were there. I just was like, I'm just gonna see this movie for what it is. I don't really care.
Fair enough. I think that would like to wrap that one up, though. I would just say I think from here on out, I think it is better for us to expect more of the unexpected. Look at the trailer as somewhat the roadmap, the concept artwork, the variant cover, and hopefully we'll get most of that in there. But like, yeah, they just gotta. I personally feel they need to be very careful about that because, like, I'll never forget with Age of Ultron, there were actual critical scenes. There was an actual golden woman in the bath of the Age of Ultron trailer that never made it into the movie. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like,
And now I'm thinking about
it.
Right?
Seeing that. I don't remember seeing that in the
there's
trailer.
a golden woman taking her clothes off in the bath of the Age of Ultron trailer.
Wow, that must have slipped.
Now I'm thinking about like how I gave them the excuse that sometimes shit gets cut from the movie. I have a hard time fucking believing that that at any point the Hulk was gonna be in Wakanda. Like that's a big fucking change to your script. That like, you know what I mean? Like, so like I think they really just were like, yeah, let's just.
I don't know. Originally in Rogue One, everybody lived, so
I don't know. Like, oh really?
Yeah, but that wasn't. But that wasn't the selling point of the trailer. Everybody lives. Go see the movie.
Made it good either, though.
Yeah. I think they just threw Hulk in there. They were like, "Yeah, we got to get the Hulk fans here." So just put it.
How much do you guys? How much do you guys think that the Dust to Dust scenes changed based on the performance of Homecoming and Black Panther? Like, do you think any of that changed at all from like with the reshoots and such? They're like, you know what? Let's make T'Challa disappear. That'll piss off a bunch of people.
You know what? I don't.
That's a good question.
I don't think they honestly changed. The only reason why I say that is just because of who they strategically actually pinpointed. They strategically picked all the people that represent the newer generation Avengers. They picked out the replacement Captain Americas. They replaced, of course, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Baby Groot. You know what I'm saying? Like, they picked out people that would last later on versus the people that would sacrifice themselves to change it out. I don't think that ever changed.
Yeah. I thought it was.
Sorry, but Sam, I wanted to jump in on that really quick because I didn't actually really catch that until so one of the Red Dread Nation people mentioned it earlier this morning, and he's like, folks seem not to be catching on. Those characters who died in Infinity War are all coming back, but more importantly, most of the characters currently still living are very likely going to end up permanently dying. The sad truth The sad truth of is those left are necessary to ultimately defeat Thanos and will end up sacrificing themselves to succeed and bring everyone else back to life. Stark, Nebula, Thor, Rogers, Banner, Rocket, Rhodes, Natasha, and some of the Wakandans. My guess is that most of them, or all of them, are going to die for reals.
So this makes me think of
like, that's really some game.
It's really dark.
I think that's
exactly. Think of Kathleen Kennedy when she took over Star Wars originally, and she kind of said one of the things they liked about Star Wars over Marvel was that with every trilogy they could reinvent and bring new blood and bring new characters in, and that with Marvel they're kind of like stuck with like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, right? So I think they have solved that riddle possibly here by like every 10 years we have a big event movie and then we reset a bit with new actors. Sorry, Keaton. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
You're good.
No, that was pretty good. That's a pretty good analogy for it. I never really thought of it that way.
I don't think like when they did the ashes to ashes scene in the movie, I think what messed it up was the number of people that they killed. Like, I understand that it was half the people around the world, but I think it took away from the fact that they killed off so many people because it let people know, all right, this isn't gonna stick. Like, if they had killed off, if Spider-Man had went ashes to ashes, I would have been like, oh, damn, they might be about to bring in Miles Morales now. Or if they had just killed Vision, I would have been like, oh man, that sucks. But they killed off so many people. And I'm like, when T'Challa disappeared, I'm like, okay, T'Challa's not dead. The second Captain America isn't dead. The third Captain America isn't dead. Like, and it just like, they kept going on and on with it. And I'm like, none of this is gonna stick. It didn't.
Though you could argue the fact that, look, you could have a Spider-Man movie with Miles Morales. You could have well, okay, you're still gonna have the original
Absolutely
America movie, but
you could still do that.
I mean, they could even make Shuri a Black Panther. I mean,
like you can bring X-Men into the universe after this.
Yeah.
But like when they wrote that scene, what I felt like happened, where they were like, "Hey, let's kill off everyone that still has movies left on their contract."
Yeah. Well, see, that's where we start getting into this dangerous side of things. For us, is we are informed with all this from the entertainment lingo, from the comic book lingo. We know that some people are unkillable, which takes away from the value for us because we want to be surprised. But people that are oblivious to it, like the regular consumers that aren't some kind of way like Marvel savvy or like book savvy, they look at us like, dang, they just killed Spider-Man. And for them, there's no return for it. And I mean, I get what you're saying, and I feel the same as that way. There's no surprise for me. But I can tell you there are people out there legit think that these characters are gone.
But I would also disagree that there's no surprise for you because you don't know 100% what exactly is going to happen in Avengers 4. If that was the case, nobody would be tuning in for the first trailer of A4 when it drops in October or whatever.
Right.
So we don't know exactly. We have speculation, and how many of those speculations were wrong about Heimdall having the Soul Stone or what have you not, or Wakanda having the Soul Stone. You know, just because we've read a book doesn't necessarily mean we have the Bible or the roadmap to how it's going to happen. So, and this isn't really directed at Sam, but it's more or less directed at some of these people attacking other fans for being upset or crying during a movie because it's like, well, if you read the comic, so the fuck what? I read the comic 10 years ago too. That doesn't mean it exactly played out the same way. Spider-Man didn't disappear in the comic.
You're only cheating yourself, honestly. You're cheating yourself of the emotional impact.
You don't know exactly how it's going to happen. And personally, I don't feel like we've had a good 10 years of Marvel movies and fairly good, unpredictable type of movies that we don't know exactly how it's going to work out in A4 if who's coming back, who's not. So
that's true.
I mean,
and I think one other thing I'll say is I think what it was for me too was the ashes scene didn't, like, to me it wasn't very dramatic. It was like, oh, they just withered away into nothing, but it didn't feel like a death. Like Peter's felt a little bit more simply because it was like, oh, look how young he is, and it has to last an extra 15 seconds. But the other ones, it didn't feel, I don't know, to me, it just didn't feel like death happening.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree. I agree. As a comic fan, yeah.
I mean, I think that the other thing I was going to tag on is that not even so much even the comic side thing. Yeah, that is a big factor, but like we know the movie side of things. We know who is contractually obligated to do other movies. You know what I'm trying to say? Like Chadwick Boseman is going to make another Black Panther movie. And I think that kind of takes it away for us because we're like, okay, these people are lined up, like Tom Holland is lined up to make another Spider-Man this coming up. So that's what I mean by like that's unavoidable.
Exactly.
Perception.
Okay, but at the same time, Ben Affleck is also contracted to Batman movies, but he wants out too. So
a lot of people are telling me they didn't like this movie. Keep raising that exact point, which I don't think is fair to this movie.
No, I don't think so at all.
It's not.
Just because somebody's contracted to a movie, they could show up in a flashback. You know, Anthony Hopkins is contracted to movies. He fucking pieced out in the first 5 minutes of Ragnarok. So,
yeah, but my main reason why I brought that up is that I know that, and I can presume that, but other people have no idea. Like other people don't know, like whether Andrew Garfield's coming back as Spider-Man or if Tom Holland's going to be in Venom. They have no freaking clue. All they know is that Spider-Man died for them. Now, I think that the second time I watched it, I was like sitting there watching people poof away. I was like, daggone, this is like the end times going on. Like people getting raptured. Like I was legit like when people just vanished, like I know it didn't have much impact for you, Keaton, but like when I was watching, I was like, it just like, yo. And it's kind of like it's the.
I thought about the Left Behind series. I really did. In that last scene.
Oh, they raptured.
But nah. I mean, I think that was a hit or miss with some people, just from their perception of what they assumed and what they didn't assume. And I think that they kind of missed the point that no matter what, in this film, these characters died. Now, how they died, way they died, could they get brought back? They still did die. But anyway, I'm sorry, Michael.
No, you're good,
shout outs to Failwell joining the chat here.
What is going
Hi, everyone.
on,
Sorry for coming late.
What did you think about Infinity War, bro? What was your highlight moment? What was your emotional moment? And what did you think about the end?
Yeah, I'll definitely make it quick. Just some overall consensus and thoughts of the film. For a really ambitious movie, comprising 10 years worth of content, I thought they did a really good job. Some of my highlights for me was the whole entire Thor arc that they had continuing on from Thor Ragnarok, specifically the scene between him and Rocket, just sort of getting into the psyche of the character for a second. Because if you really look at it, things were going really bad for the guy. He just lost his brother, who he had obvious problems with, but he just had his family die when he was going back and forth with Star-Lord. So I love that sort of one-to-one moment between him and Rocket. And then obviously him coming back with, the new hammer. I thought that was really awesome. And then he got to finally show his, power, I guess. We've seen him in the other movies, but this one I thought he really got to display that. I thought Thanos was great. I thought they did a really, really good job at fleshing him out and making him a sort of formidable villain that also wins. I like how this movie ends with the heroes actually not winning. So that's some of the highlights for me. The ending, I would say, even though we've read the comics and we're in the know, as you mentioned, it still was an impact. Like, what do you mean Black Panther's gone? Like, what do you mean? Like, my audience was shitting bricks, and even myself, I'm like, you're really gonna introduce such a big black hero and just off him in the first movie like that when all of them are together?
Yep.
So while I did sort of feel like, okay, they're not actually dead, they're totally just going to come back in some capacity, I still found it to be effective, like you mentioned, for non-audience members, not people who aren't informed.
Mm-hmm. And with the connection between Failwell and myself being huge Walking Dead fans, I'll take it to another level. Again, we know what's going on, but look, when Glenn died, sorry, spoiler. I just realized that.
Bring up the most saddest death
what?
No one wanted to remember.
My point. Look, when people legitimately swore off The Walking Dead, and ever since that moment happened, The Walking Dead, as good as I like the show, it has been declining in ratings, and because people have been kind of turned off and people swore off that show. So like, while the rest of us have the patience to sit here and analyze the movie for a whole year, there's a good amount of people that would probably be there's people I know that have never watched Homecoming or Amazing Spider-Man because Tobey Maguire isn't Spider-Man, and because they can't understand why there is a new Spider-Man like that. So when changes happen, not everybody jumps on board for that. So I still believe this is a very risky move for Marvel, bringing Black Panther, taking out their two biggest guys right now.
No, I think that's a really good point. And I mean, did anybody at one point think that they were going to just kill Thanos and not snap the fingers? Like, I was just curious. Like, did any of you guys ever?
Okay, first of all, I knew exactly there's no way they're gonna kill Thanos, especially this is like I said, this is a Thanos movie. This is a manhunt movie for the Infinity Gems. That's what this whole movie was. I know darn well for sure that Thanos was not gonna get like taking the L in this movie. This is his moment to shine. This is what we were building up to for the last 10 years. So I didn't know what the ending was gonna be like. I was hoping for him to like actually get all the gems, which he did. I just didn't know how it was gonna end off. Like immediately, as soon as he just snaps his fingers, stuff just happens. And Thor's asking like, "What did you do? Like, what did you do?" I was like, I have no idea what just happened.
I mean,
I low-key thought I thought he was gonna die at the end or something like that, to be honest, because the director said that it's definitely two separate movies, not part one, part two, which we realize now was a lie. So me going into it, I'm like, okay, this is a fairly long film, so what sort of MacGuffin or like what's gonna happen here that gives the Avengers the upper hand? Because I'm so used to the heroes winning. So when he just snapped his fingers and said, "No, I'm going to my porch," he actually did it. He did what he wanted to do, and that was it, right? So I rated it on the on his end.
I mean, I think going in, I knew it was going to be a two-part movie, regardless of the title. I think the Infinity Gauntlet tale is they made it clear that it's going to span two movies. And knowing the story itself, I called it a long time ago that this storytelling wise, the best way to do it would be to end this with the snap. Like I knew that for some reason. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you think about it, that's the best way to Empire Strikes Back this shit. Like, you know what I mean? It's like snap it and then we're gonna get into the next one. So I knew that going in, but no, there's no way I thought Thanos was gonna die in the first one.
And it legitimately, after that snap, like you guys already mentioned it, like the rapture and shit, like they legitimately panned, like I was it's still fresh in my head from yesterday, but there's like no music. All you can hear is wind, and you don't even hear fucking birds or they're like it's fucking creepy. Awesome. That is some creepy shit. And then they go to black and start playing the Reigns of Castamere and shit. You're like, yo, like I legit looked at my girl and she looked at me and I'm like, did they fucking just Game of Thrones our ass? Like,
that's a great point, Akasan, because one of my favorite lines of the movie too was when you realize like, oh shit, like everyone's actually gone, and then it goes to Captain America, and you think he might be, the optimistic one. There might be another game plan, and he just says, "Oh God."
Oh my, yeah.
You know like what I really liked about that ending too was when after everything is done, just to pour salt in the wound to the audience. They fucking disappear. They disappear the fucking title of the movie too.
Yeah, I saw that the second time.
They were like, "Yo, fuck y'all too." Look, like,
I was hoping they were gonna take it even further and not have an end credit scene, like nothing.
I've been fucked up.
You know what they could have? Honestly, they could have done without the Captain Marvel thing. Because
I was hoping they were just gonna end it, and people were gonna be like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
What?
That was some dark shit, dude. That like I legitimately thought at the end of the credits we were gonna hear like the HBO thing, boom, just come up.
I wanted to mention why I think that possibly why they would have killed Black Panther at the end of this, just to prevent Black Panther fatigue. We just came off of February having Black Panther. Maybe they don't want to just. That's what I was thinking, maybe, and maybe that's why they didn't have him so much in this movie, like just not to, you know what I mean, not to saturate his FaceTime on the screen right now, and give him a break for the next movie.
I feel that.
Would you guys prefer them to go a few years without bringing back Black Panther, Spider-Man, and like I'm saying, Miles Morales, Shuri as Black Panther, like them actually try to run a movie without the rest of them, those main dudes.
I think it'll make it more impactful when they return. I think it'll make it.
Well, that's a decent point you make, because have you guys heard the rumored story for Avengers 4?
It says it's gonna be maybe 5 years in the future, right?
Yeah, something like along the lines of that, where it's 5 years in the future, right? So, like Akasan mentioned, like maybe in that 5 years when they're just trying to get a new set of Avengers together with what they have, maybe they do have that. Maybe in the timeline when we kick off Avengers 4 and they come back, you just see Shuri as the Black Panther. You see, Miles is taking up the Spider-Man mantle, and the audience are going to be like, "What the fuck is going on?" But I think it'd be interesting if they did that.
I'd be down for. I'd be kind of curious for something like that to happen, but I'm not sure. It would be interesting.
So connecting to the ending, though, when I watched the movie a second time, I really sort of had an emphasis on the scenes where Thanos was in the water and stuff like that, like when in the soul realm, whatever it was. Yeah. Do you think everyone went to there, or something similar?
I think so.
You mean to the Soul Stone?
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's the perfect place to put them.
Wait, you mean they didn't go to heaven?
Hey, shout out again the Walking Dead connection. Shout outs to I think his name is Aaron for playing Red Skull. I thought that was fucking
great. Yeah. You know what the funniest thing was? I saw the red carpet. I seen the red carpet. I'm like, what are you doing there, bro?
Like, right. I was wondering that too. I'm like, wait a second, huh? Like, what's this dude doing here?
Yeah. So here's a quick question. So let's say everyone who went to the Soul Stone, right? They come back, Avengers 4, they reverse everything, right? What happens to all the people who died as a result of people just being taken out of nowhere? Do they actually die too?
No, they're dead. I think they're dead. I'm thinking maybe. No, I don't know, because Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is supposed to center on Gamora, supposed to run the lead. Like James Gunn has said, that Star-Lord is taking a backseat to Gamora for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So I don't know how that's going to work. Yeah.
So, like somebody was kind of trying to explain that one to me the other day, is the fact that a soul for a soul. So Gamora died. She died for the Soul Stone or whatever, but she's inside the Soul Stone, and she might do similar to the comics, and she'll be the one to take over the Infinity Gauntlet at a later time or something like that. There's so many theories. Again, going back to that whole deal I was saying is like, congratulations, people that read a book, but there's so many different ways it can go and everything. So I gotta bounce in a second, but nitpicks around the table. Just what's the most ridiculous nitpick that you have about the movie? For me, was why didn't they cut off Thanos's arm? And on top of that, just on a writing perspective, when Steve, after they try to negotiate with the black children or the Black Order,
he was talking to Wakanda, and he's like, "Hey, you want to stop this?" Or?
No. So when they were trying to negotiate, and Steve comes back to Bucky, and he's like, "Did they surrender?" And then I would have written, "Do they ever?" Like that, like, because like I'm like, who the fuck ever surrenders at the line? Like I would have loved that line right there.
Okay, I think I have one that we didn't touch on, and I don't think Sam mentioned this. What about when Gamora, remember she told Quill, if it comes down to it, kill me if he can get me. Yeah. So what about when she just gives up the Soul Stone for Nebula, she gives up giving Thanos where the Soul Stone is to save Nebula's life. Wasn't that kind of, I don't know, that kind of was an inequality for me, right?
I feel that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt like if she realized that she got kidnapped by him or got taken by him, she would be compromised anyway. Like that's the way I took it. That especially second time watching it, it's like, okay, why did you put all this pressure on Peter and then you just relent like that? I think that she knew once she was even in her surrogate dad's clutches that she would be compromised anyway. Like no matter what, like not only she has like a love tie to this crazy man, but that he would make her do what she needed to do to get what he needed. That's the way that I took it.
Connecting to that though, one of my sort of like pet peeves, especially the second time around, was, where the fuck did she learn where the Soul Stone was? She just knew where it was.
There's a lot of shit that we don't understand. what, like, how did the Black Order? How did the Black Order find? Where did they know where Vision was and where like and that Doctor Strange at the time?
They used the Dragon Ball radar.
Yeah, I was so confused. I'm like, Gamora, like that's really interesting. Like, where did you find that Soul Stone? Like,
Gamora's
very specific.
That one makes sense.
Michael. You're right. Yeah, it's very specific. I don't know how.
It was on a side mission. It was on a side mission.
And then how'd you get the recorded too? Like, that's a pretty good document we could have been using.
She went on a side mission with Rose from Last Jedi and went to a casino planet and found out.
She won it in a game of 21.
Yeah.
I think my nitpick was the fact that Ebony Maw and Thanos CG was so great, but the rest of the Black Order looked terrible. In comparison, I'm not gonna say that they're terrible, but in comparison, the Ebony Maw and Thanos look real. But the rest of the Black Order, to me, it just kind of was just like so. And it was weird because I was like, you got dope looking characters, but like, why didn't they get as polished as Ebony Maw and Thanos? And yeah, there was a lot more emphasis on Thanos and a lot more close-ups on them. But if they would have looked as good as, you know, both of them, that was just really my only real pet peeve other than other things I brought up. I like second time I watched it, like when I was watching that fight scene with
Bruce Banner.
No. When Vision and
Captain America.
I saw that fight scene and I looked at, you know, the guy that was attacking Vision. I was like, he doesn't look as good as Ebony Maw does. Like even in any shading or in even broad daylight, it just didn't. The comparison just was not equal distribution to me.
I noticed that too during the Hulkbuster fight, the end when it was just Bruce and that character, I believe.
Black.
I think
Black Thor. Yeah, he didn't look as great there.
But I think what a lot of that also comes down to is like people really don't care about the detail. You guys do, I know, but like people just subconsciously accept in their like you already said, facial expressions and all that. You don't really need to know the facial expression of that fucking turtle looking dude that's beating the shit out of a giant Iron Man. It's like we just accept that it's going to be two big motherfuckers fighing. That's enough, basically. So
okay, somebody. This is not a nitpick. Can somebody clear up for me? Because I didn't know what were those horde animals? Like was that the equivalent of Thanos owning a pit bull ring and he has released his dogs on like?
I don't know if that was a specific race in the Marvel universe or not. Someone could clarify.
I have no idea what those things are.
What the fuck were they? Where'd they come from? I didn't know what like I didn't know.
I thought it was like I just thought it was the equivalent of basically they need a CG army to basically brutalize so you can like cut people in half and like you just every
action movie.
Yeah. I don't know. That would have been cool if they might have explained it a little bit, but that didn't really bother me all too much. But like, I wonder where they're from. Like, those were like some pretty nasty looking ass beings, though. Like, those actually, when it got to the battle, I was kind of shook. I'm like, they really got to fight a lot of them. Ooh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, it was weird. Their mouths looked like symbiotes for a second.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, those things that look like they worse than Chitauri. My gosh.
Oh yeah, facts.
Yeah.
I think one of my pet peeves though probably was like around in the first half of the movie. At points, it kind of felt a little dull and dragged a little bit for me.
Yeah, I kind of felt that too. I'm like,
with the first half of the movie.
Yeah, just like a little bit after the.
Maybe in the second act. Maybe in the second act.
A little, yeah. In the second act, it started to down a little bit. I think that's when Captain America was introduced. I think around then.
That's funny because I felt that it picked up around that time when Captain America was introduced. That was like the only time we got like a very classic Russo brothers directed. Grounded fight scene. Everything else was like so out of like so outworldly combat fighting type stuff. So
yeah, it might have been like around that point or like a little bit before, but it just felt a little dull to me. And what did you guys think about the beginning, like the very first scene of the movie?
It set the tone immediately for the movie.
With the ship.
I thought it was great. Yeah.
I felt like I might wanted to have seen Xander because when it started off, I'm like, okay, we just see Thanos standing there.
I mean, I think it was easy enough for us to assume that Thanos fucking pile drive
bodied them
right through, just bodied a half of Xandar there. So
yeah,
you know. All right, guys, I'm gonna have to get on out of here. You guys can keep the party going if you want, but my stream is going to shut down. So Red Nation, make sure you guys check out Sam's channel. I will link it later if you want to get the full discussion. Tomorrow, my Golden Week holiday starts in Japan, so that would have actually been a better time to do the stream. But nevertheless.